this, I'm going to show you how to paint a repair. There is a special technique, or it will show, and I know because I had that happen many times before I figured out the secret. Alright, I sprayed the texture earlier today, about 3 hours ago, and what I did is I put two big 21-inch fans on this area, and I have a second one over here. Those move about 3,500 CFM, and that's the key to get this to dry so fast. So in just a couple of hours it dried enough. Now I will point out that the previous repair work was completely dry. Due to my vertigo, I normally could have finished it yesterday, but it just kicked my butt. I had to go home early, so I came in and textured it this morning. So I needed to have this done. They're gonna stage this house tomorrow. So I put some big fans on it, a couple hours, it's dry, and I went ahead and primed it. You can see the primer's on, and then I've also gone a little bit further and I went around and cut in the edges with the paint. So now here's the secret. Whenever you do a repair like this, to get it to not show, is prime it with a good coat of primer, let it dry the proper amount of time, and then put a coat of paint on it, a good solid coat of paint, and extend it just slightly past the primer area. Okay, now you let that dry, and it's really best to let it dry the recommended time, which is usually 4 hours. So you let it dry like overnight, and then you extend it a little bit further with another coat. Now I will point out, if it isn't flat paint, it's probably going to show a little bit. This is called low luster, which has a very slight shine to it, but if I were to repaint this whole ceiling, it would have been about 1,000 square feet, because it just goes all one continuous ceiling except for a couple small rooms back here. And they're putting this house up for sale, so we just wanted a quick repair to make these cracks go away and make the paint blend in decently. And honestly, the paint job that he just had done on this isn't top-notch anyway. There's holidays in the paint, like this picture here, and there's just defects. It's not the greatest, so this should blend in just fine considering what's around it. Now, the glossier the paint, the less it's going to blend. And what it is the edge of the paint, it telegraphs itself right where it's at, and you'll see that from an angle, the right angle. You might stand below it and it might look perfect, but from an angle it'll kind of telegraph itself. Now flat paint will often just blend right in, so you can do the spot paint. So if you really want it to blend perfectly, spot paint and then paint the whole wall, ceiling, whatever it is, or at least go to some break. Sometimes you can use a break like right where it starts into a hallway maybe, because those natural breaks, they have light lines and shadows that kind of break up that paint that you're doing. And if you've got something like a beam or whatever, of course you can use that. The color will often match. It's the sheen that does it. Now what used to get me was I would put a good coat of primer on it, and then I would put one coat of paint on it, and thinking that that was going to be enough. Well, it often wasn't. I needed to put that second coat of paint on there to really seal it, because it would flash. And what that means is basically you could stand and look at the repair on the wall and it would look great. The repair matched and everything, but you'd get to a side angle and all of a sudden you'd see right where it was. And that was because of that slight difference in porosity. It needed two coats to seal it up and bring it back to the old level. One coat wasn't enough, it was absorbing. And then the other trick was knowing that with flat paint you can get away with that, but with glossier paints you can't. So keep those in mind when you go to do your repair. So I'm not going to make you watch this whole thing. I'll start painting it. I'll probably speed it up a little bit, and then I'll wrap up this video and tell you one last secret. Now this homeowner, they've got some older paint here. The bucket probably wasn't sealed well. It'll skin over sometime. You can sometimes just pick it out, or you might have to filter it. Since I'm just doing these small repairs, I'm just going to go ahead and pick it out. Now on this first pass with the roller, I consider that my loading coat. You've got to get this roller loaded thoroughly all the way through. So the first pass, I don't really worry too much about making it look good. I'm just trying to get it on the ceiling and load that roller. Okay, so now it's loaded, so I can go ahead and roll it out. Okay, one of the biggest mistakes I see with homeowners doing their own paint is, there's a few, but the biggest one is trying to make your paint go too far. Don't try and spread it too thin. It just is not a good idea. You'll get a lot more of those holidays like I showed you, and it may show through the previous coat more. And it's just not a good way to do it. It's not worth the savings. So go ahead and put a good solid coat on. And then what you want to do is, after you've got it all on, you think it's on decent, you want to go back over and roll off the paint. And the reason is, I just put an extra heavy gob on there. Hopefully you can see that on camera. Those will happen when you're rolling. You'll get a line right off the side of the roller sometime, and you might not see it. So once you roll it out and your roller's not soaking wet anymore, you just go over it pretty lightly, and just like that, you pick up those lines, even the paint out. And then what I'm going to do is, I like to try and soften this edge because it ends up being kind of hard because the paint will squish out right there at the end. So I sometimes just lift off as I'm coming off the end very lightly, and that gives that a much softer edge. Okay, that's basically it for that area, so I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of it up. Now, for those of you that don't know, if you're wondering why I talk about the vertigo thing, I didn't just get it this morning. I've had it for 10 months. It hit me one day when I woke up. I was fine 1 minute, and the next minute it was like a freight train came through and knocked me off my feet. The room was spinning about 200 miles an hour. And it was instant vomiting and heaving. Luckily it was in the morning where I mostly was heaving. And I ended up, this was 10 months ago if I didn't say that, I have terrible brain fog and aphasia because of it. And that goes along with the fatigue. But anyway, I ended up having to have an ambulance. Had my wife call for an ambulance, and I couldn't get to my phone because it was 4 feet away and I just couldn't reach it. I would fall over. I was on my hands and knees, and I would literally fall over each time I reached for it. So I finally used Siri to text my wife that I needed help, and luckily that worked. She showed up and called the ambulance. I spent 3 days in the hospital, and they pretty much told me it should just go away, which it normally does. But after 3 months it hadn't gone away. So since that time, We basically had a test called a BNG test where they squirt hot and cold water in your ear and track your eye movements. And that determined that I have 40% nerve damage on one side of my inner ear. So I'm constantly dizzy. One eye, it ties into your vision. So one eye is basically giving my brain faulty signals. And so it just overloads your brain, makes it hard to have energy and concentrate and things like that. But I still have to try and make a living, so I do these smaller jobs like this because I can get these done in the time frame that I have with energy and focus and such. Plus, if you're good at it, you can actually make really good money on these smaller jobs. And in case you're wondering too, I have tried a lot of things to get rid of this. A lot of supplements. I'm even doing ozone therapy. I bought a little ozone machine. Everything we can think of. We're eating healthy, trying to treat for leaky gut, taking lots of powerful stuff. Not anything pharmaceutical because I don't want it. And there's really nothing they offer that would help other than helping with the dizziness. So I have been to chiropractor 10 times, physical or acupuncture 10 times, 2 physical therapists, had MRIs, the VNG tests, I've seen an ENT several times, got another follow-up in a week. I'm now scheduled to go see a specialist in a physical therapy business that specializes in vestibular rehabilitation. So hopefully they can do me some good. Sometimes they can retrain your brain with these little things they do. It'll make me dizzy if I do much, but they have you look at your thumb and do all these interesting things that kick in the vertigo, and it's supposed to retrain your brain to ignore the faulty signals. But so far my physical therapists haven't known how to do that very well, so we're hoping this next one is the right one. So I'll show you how the repair came out. I can't really tell where I stopped. It came out really, really good. Customer's gonna be really happy. Hey, if you like this video, check out these other ones popping up here somewhere on the screen. I always forget which side they're on. And these might help you out too. If you like these and want to get more content like this, be sure and subscribe and click that bell icon. And I thank you for stopping by. I will see you on the next video. Thanks a lot.